Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Good evening. I am Mark Sauls from Hostel 3000, and this is a new podcast. My very first guest on this is Mr. David Anthony Hawes, and we are going to be doing a talk today on the topic of being a game changer. So, Anthony will tell us a bit about himself, and then the conversation will take us to where it goes. So, Anthony, we've had a few discussions before, so we have met in the past. I was honored to be the guest on your podcast, so thank you for that. So, over to you, Anthony. If you give us your views on a game changer and just tell us a bit about yourself.
Excellent. Thank you, Mark. First, let me correct that process. My name is actually Anthony David Hawes, and my father had 3 sons, and he called us all with 2 first names, and he called us by our second name. So the people that know me call me David. The people that don't know me call me Anthony, which, by the way, is a very handy thing, because when I get a phone call and people say, "Can I please speak to Anthony Hawes?" I know straight away they don't know me, because nobody that knows me calls
Useful.
me Anthony. So I'm blessed. I'm 3rd generation from the UK. So my grandfather, my father, and myself were born here in South Africa. I'm born and bred Johannesburg. I've got 2 older brothers. I've had as the expression goes, I'm having a beautiful childhood. and I love that the way the good book puts it, where they says, be childlike, not childish. And that also comes into your mindset. And what you're talking about, game changer, is sometimes people do something in life and it works, and they do it and then they stop. And I love the way Steve Jobs puts it. He said, be hungry, be foolish. And that's a good way of actually putting the game changer. The game changers are the people who are always continually looking for improvement. And the schooling system and the process, I love the way Robert Kiyosaki puts it, go to school, get good grades, go to university, get a degree, get a good job, get married, have children, and it's that. And the challenge with that sometimes is, I don't know if you've heard the term front loading. And my older brother's guilty of this, because he literally did his qualification. Look, he's retired now, but he did his qualifications as a very young man. So he front loaded all his information and his knowledge. He got a master's degree in computer science or whatever it was, way back then when the dinosaurs walked the earth. And the challenge with that is, when you stop that hunger and that moving forward. And what I've noticed, particularly in the space where I move in, and also the game-changing space, that segment of the population that just has a closed mindset. And how do I define a closed mindset? Think about this for anybody who's listening. These 2 statements are absolutely corrosive to your mindset and your moving forward in the world. First one is, I know that. I know that. Why is that corrosive? Because when you say, I know that, it shuts down your learning in your mind. Where you say to somebody, you might even know what they're talking about, but you can always learn from everybody. Please show me. Please teach me. They might be your junior. They might be your junior of a few decades. But guess what? They might have learned something that you don't know. And when you say, I know that, you stop that learning. And that's where that game changer to me, Mark, is that mindset of saying, I don't care who you are, what color, what creed, what sex, what age, what religion, how much money you got in the bank or don't have in the bank, your education level, doesn't matter. You can teach me something. And that's a mindset, an open mindset of saying, I can learn from you. Sometimes just a word, a process, a system that can just move you forward. And let's bring it back to where we live in the modern world. Our modern world at the moment is the most exciting place you can think of. We are in a space where I don't think we've ever been in this space ever in history. And these people that talk about, scarcity and I don't have the money and I don't have that, that is just, that's that, I know that. And the second most toxic statement is, we've always done it that way.
Yes.
We've always done it that way. That's how I've done it for the last 40 years, and that's how I'm going to continue doing it. Guess what? And I say that to people my age. Look, I'm 64. I say to people my age, the skills, I'm not talking about the morals and the mindset, but I'm talking about the actual physical skills that you learned 40 years ago. The modern generation has no need for them. I remember I was talking to a friend of mine, same age as me, and he said he was dealing with his grandchildren, and they said, "Granddad, can you help me with my homework?" And he said, "No, I can't," because it's that space that, some of the subjects the kids are doing at school these days, we didn't even know of then. They didn't exist. And I just come back to that game changing, that mindset in our world today. Think about this. We have never had more money, more technology, more entrepreneurs, more medicine. Think of a subject, more of everything. And then I get these people say, "Oh, I can't afford it." Again, game changer. And I love the way Robert Kiyosaki puts it. He said, when you look at something and you look at the price tag, and it's a little bit, how do we put this politically correct and using the right terms? When it's a little bit rich for what you have in your wallet at the time, don't say, "I cannot afford that." Why? Again, like that, I know that it shuts down the entire process in your mind and that Google search. Your mind is more powerful than a Google search.
Yeah.
So the way Robert Kiyosaki says is, when you look at something, you say, "How can I afford that?" Whatever it is. It's not a matter of I can't afford it. How can I afford it? What do I need to do? What do I need to trade, to barter, to learn? What skill do I need to learn? Who do I need to talk to? Who do I need to collaborate with? Do you see what it does? It just opens up this whole mindset of saying, and this game changer of saying, I can do it. I don't have the solution now. I'm looking at you, Mark, and saying, I don't have the solution now. I will find it. How long it might take? It might take you, I don't know. Depends who you speak to, who your network is. You might be one of these game changers that literally says, "Guys, I'm doing a collaboration with Mark. We've got this challenge. Help."
Yeah.
And part of the game changer mentality, Mark, is that ability to literally say, "Help." And that is something we need to learn. Because quite often, particularly as a man and the head of the household, and I'm the protector and all that kind of stuff, sometimes it's perceived as a sign of weakness when you say, "Please help me."
Yes.
When you understand it, and you understand in business in our modern world, particularly just think of the technology where you're at. Mark, there's no ways that one person can deal with all the technology we're dealing with at the moment. It's just not possible. It's too big and too varied.
Yeah.
You can be a good or a specialist in a very thin niche. What about the rest of it?
Yeah.
And that's where you need that collaboration. I don't know why I keep coming back to Robert Kiyosaki, because I physically saw him here in Joburg live in an event. And I like the way he says it. He says, to be successful, think about this, there are no successful people on our entire planet, past, present, and future, that did it on their own.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of people will say, "Bullshit, David. A lot of these people did do it on their own." No, they were the idea and the brains of it, but they had an entire team and an entire company and an entire structure around them. I mean, the one that jumps to mind straight away is Elon Musk and Steve Jobs. incredible individuals, game changers.
Mm. Mm.
Think of them.
Yeah,
They've got entire, well,
absolutely.
there's Steve Jobs. He's no longer with us, but he's still got a
Mm.
company and a team that's still functioning. Elon Musk
Yeah,
has got how many different companies, and he's not the only one in that company. I love the way Sir Richard
yeah,
Branson puts it. He says, we don't, how did he put it? He said, we don't train good people. We find good people. We bring them in. And then he said another good thing, another game changer. He said another very interesting thing. He said, treat your employees, educate them, give them the knowledge and the skill and the experience that they could leave tomorrow. A lot of people look at that and
exactly.
say, whoa. And then Sir Richard Branson adds it up with another statement. He says, then treat them so well that they never want to leave.
Exactly. Yeah.
And when you
David, you've hit
understand that,
the nail on the head on so many things there. It's going to be, these are all things that, people in business today, small businesses, big businesses, there's so many points you've made in there, and the key thing is all about mindset and, the way you talk to yourself. You mentioned things like, in a different way, but it's having a limited way of talking about your abilities. I can't do this, or I can't do that, or I haven't got this. And there's so many people out there that thought leaders that teach you about talking to yourself in a productive way, in a resourceful way, and not in a limited way, and to think in terms of abundance and things like that.
correct,
And you've mentioned so many things that literally tick every single box. And for me, one of the key things is, like you said, and I think it's typical for lots of men. It doesn't matter where, but I think especially for South African men, it's an independence thing. It's about being strong. It's about always being able to be self-reliant and do things on your own.
correct,
And that doesn't work in business. I've done that in some places where I've worked. I've always found a way of, I'll do it myself. If it's a two-man job, I'll find a way to do it myself. And in many cases, I succeeded in doing the job myself. But what I failed to do in having that mentality and that way of doing things is I failed to form collaborations with other people. I failed to share in the value that they could add to the work. They may have come up with a brand new way of doing something that would take the job to half the time it takes. So thanks for sharing that, David. I just had to jump in there because what you're saying is quite exciting, and I think it resonates with a lot of people out there and will bring value to their lives. So I'll let you carry on.
excellent. I like what you said there, because that self speak that you talk to yourself is mission critical. A lot of times when you think about it, the conversation that you have with yourself, think of this. The conversation a lot of people have with their self, when you said that to somebody else, they'd smack you in the head. You don't speak to me like that. I won't take that. Think about that. And then people say,
True,
whoa. And
very
then
true.
there's another thing, and I love they. I love, they always say they. One day I'm going to meet them.
They.
I'm in the process of setting up my collaboration that I'll meet them one day. But they say that we have about 60,000 thoughts a day.
Hmm.
That's not the interesting thing. They also say that depending on who you look at, between 90 and 95% of those thoughts are repetitive thoughts. And here's
Yeah.
the scary thing. They're negative.
Yes.
So what are you
Yes.
feeding? Your mind is like a fertile garden. And
Mm.
whatever you feed it, it will grow. When you plant weeds, guess what? That's what weeds will grow. It does exactly what you tell it to do. Your
That's
mind is
true.
the ultimate Google search. What is happening there?
Yeah.
And your mind will do that. A lot of people don't realize that your conscious mind, that one that you and I are doing now consciously,
Yeah. Yeah.
is a very small segment of our actual being. Our
Yeah.
subconscious is way more powerful.
Yeah.
And here's the interesting thing about your subconscious, which is very powerful. Your subconscious does not know whether this is real or imaginary. Now, I'm pausing there for a reason, because Think about that. You can do, I don't know if you are aware about visualization, or your viewers or readers or readers, readers, and they're listening to us. Your listeners are aware that visualization, you can literally sit, and I encourage I tell my students to do this on a daily basis. It's a seeding process and a visualization process where
Yeah.
literally in the morning, generally one of the first few things you do is you literally close your eyes and you go into that space, your happy space, wherever it is. Me personally, it's the racetrack because I'm a petrol head. And the second space is I'm closing my eyes because I'm going there. The second space is the beach. Now think about that. You can go in your mind, sitting wherever you are. You can be look, I live in Johannesburg, which is it's a concrete jungle. I'm 600 kilometers, or what's it, about 480 miles from the nearest coast. I can sit in the morning and visualize and telling my subconscious, and I can smell that warm, salty breeze blowing on me, and I can feel the moisture, and I can hear the surf, and I can put my toes in the sand, and I can feel the ocean.
Yeah.
Your subconscious does not know that that is not real because you are telling it. And your subconscious is literally what it is about. And I also say to my students, it's very important that, I always say to my students, the most important thing in your life is 6 inches. And Mark, you always get those men that go, yeah, baby. Not that 6 inches, guys. It's this 6 inches. Okay. And the important thing about this 6 inches is it's always with you.
Yeah.
Think about this. People say, oh, I need a holiday. But think about this as well. When you go on holiday, you take all your bullshit and all your problems and all your bad habits and everything that's not good with you.
Yes.
Why?
Yeah.
Because this 6 inches goes with you. You can't say, hang on a minute, I'm going on holiday. Let me leave this guy at home and take the holiday. No. And I say to my students, make your mind a beautiful place. And they look at me sometimes and saying, what do you mean, David? It's the only place where you are all the time. So make it a beautiful place. It's your space. You spend your entire life here in your head. And there's only two things. Life is about, what's that?
I was going to say this about that, that beautiful space in your head. One of the things we do, because visualization is something I do, I practice that quite regularly, and
Beautiful.
I've seen the results of that, and the aspiration is to make it second nature or first nature, if for better, and just do it on a more regular basis as a natural way. What I have found is that sometimes people, including myself, we may spend a few hours a week visualizing things and creating that emotional connection to something imaginary. Like you say, your subconscious doesn't know the difference between real and imaginary. So you create that in your mind and therefore experience it. And your body goes through a process whereby, all the relevant hormones associated with that good experience are released. So chemically, your body changes. And in changing
Correct.
chemically, your thoughts change, and your thought frequencies change and align you with something better. Now what we sometimes do is we do it for a few hours and we expect the earth to move because we've done it for a few hours, and we forget that
Yes.
we've spent literally a lifetime thinking negatively and living
Correct.
in a dimension of the quantum field that we see as reality, which it is real, but we can have another reality by changing the way we think and the way we visualize things. So that's thanks for sharing that. That's another powerful thing. Lots of there's many people out there that will watch this podcast. They'll watch things to do with visualization and manifestation and all that kind of thing, and they'll see it as pie in the sky, something up there with the fairies. That's a
Correct.
hippie practice, for
Mumbo
want of a
jumbo.
better
It's
word,
mumbo
and
jumbo. It
it's
doesn't
mumbo
work.
jumbo and all that sort of stuff. And the being an engineer myself, or I'm a former engineer. Everything used to have to be practical
No, you're still an
and be
engineer.
able. Yeah, I
Mark, you're
am.
still an engineer.
I'm still an engineer. You're right. I'm just applying the engineering principles to something different. Um,
Can
and
I interrupt you there?
Go
The
ahead.
nice thing about engineers is that they
What's that?
understand how life works. Because
We try.
engineering, you
Yeah.
actually understand how things are put together and the
Yeah.
things like strengths of materials.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
possible, that's not possible. No, from a purely physics point of view, we're not talking headspace. And that's
Yeah.
why when you can process it from an engineering point of view, then you say, and I love what you're saying there, because yes, there's a segment of the men that are going to look at this and say, "Are you talking about mantras and meditation and
Yeah.
visualization?" That's for the woman. And let me interject here. There's only two things that are important in our life. In fact, our life revolves around two things. What do you think they are, Mark? Take
That's
a
a very
guess.
good question. I'll attempt to answer them. I think the first thing is how you perceive things and how you react to things.
Okay,
Close?
I'll put it this way. Fe, and
Hmm.
you might recognize it as the symbol for iron. Fe,
Yes, that's right.
chemical
Yeah.
symbol for iron. And what
Yeah.
does it actually mean? First one is focus.
Yeah.
Your life
Okay.
is about focus.
Where your focus
Wherever
goes,
your
your energy
focus
flows.
goes, wherever your focus goes, your emotions flow.
Good.
Wherever your emotions flow, your feelings flow.
Yeah.
And we are our feelings. We
Yeah.
are, and men struggle with this, particularly,
We do.
that, as you say, the South African hairy arsed, you mean, I don't need it, I'm bulletproof kind of stuff.
Yeah.
No, we are emotional creatures. And think about this. When you wake up in the morning, what goes through your head without even consciously thinking about it?
Mm.
How am I feeling?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
In emotion. How am
Yeah.
I feeling?
Yeah.
And what do? We our focus, our effort, our energy, and our money on improving a feeling, because we know when I do this and I change that, I'm going to get that feeling and that emotion.
Yeah. Yeah.
We do things purely for the emotion. And what is the most powerful emotion on our planet for us human beings? Here's a question for you, Mark. What is the
Love.
most powerful emotion?
I'll answer it in a different way. There's two main emotions, love and fear.
No,
One is the
there's one.
opposite of the other. Love.
Correct. 100%. Bottom line. Without love, gets nowhere. And here's the
Yeah.
interesting thing when you talk about love. We are not talking just about the physical act of sex and
Yeah.
intimacy. We're talking about love. And here's
Yeah.
the beauty of emotions. Here's our challenge as human beings. Please explain to me in simple language, Mark, the emotion of love.
You are really good at these questions, David. So the
Think about this.
the
We've got over 500,000 words in the English language, and we've got poets and songwriters and very creative people that can flourish forth and sing the most beautiful songs and hymns and poems.
yeah.
But our language fails us when we got to try and explain an emotion.
Yeah.
The
Um,
best way to explain an emotion is how? Another good question.
by
What's the
by
best way to explain an emotion?
by committing an act.
Correct. So think of that with your partner. How do you say or show your partner, I love you?
Yeah.
And sometimes the best way, Mark, of doing that is to walk in or whatever it is without saying a word. Just go up to that person, give them a hug, hold them nice and close, hold their hand, and take them outside for a walk without saying a word,
Yeah.
because that is the emotion. You haven't used one English word
Word.
or whatever language you use, whatever your home tongue is.
Yeah.
You haven't used one English word, but you have shown your emotion by an action, and
Yeah.
that person feels it on an emotional level. The challenge is, and you know that because you're an educated man, sometimes the more intelligent and the more educated people are, and the more letters they have after their name, the more complicated they want to make it. They want to complicate this thing, and it's not. Go to your
Yeah.
woman, say nothing, just put your arms around her, give her a nice hug, take her by the hand, and take her outside for a walk. That's it. Try that.
I'm,
Ladies and
I'm, ju-
gentlemen, boys and girls, try. It's not only the boys that need to do that, the girls can do that as well.
I was just about to ask you, David, do the girls need to do this as well? But yeah, thank you. Thanks for that. There's a few other things. We've given, or you've given, a lot of insights into the mental aspect of being a game changer, and quite rightly so, because what that mental aspect does is, that.
Carry on. For
Ah,
some reason, I just lost
are you
sound
still
there.
there?
There we go. You're
Yeah,
back.
I saw it counting up again. Okay. Yeah. For some reason we forget that the mindset is the most powerful thing that we have, and we need to cultivate that positive mindset first before we can do anything else. Now, when I say that, I don't mean that it needs to be in series. Do this first, then that, and then this. Some of these things are all done together. It's like a spider web. It's all intricately connected, and we work on things
Correct.
at different times and become, good at doing various different things. And then, after enough time and effort has passed, then we get the results we want. We did talk about visualization and imagination, and that links in nicely to what some people describe as obsessive imagination, which is again living something over and over in your head in the correct way, and not recounting events that took place 20 years ago. I think all of us have had a measure of trauma in our lives somewhere, somehow. And it
Correct.
affects us differently. Sometimes we take that trauma and we turn it into a fuel to drive us forward, and other times we take that trauma and we think about it every day, and that becomes our reality again. Something that's
It
already
shuts
happened.
us down.
On It shuts us down, and we keep on having the same experience. What about things like empathy and self-awareness, David? What's your take on that?
The interesting thing about self awareness and empathy is it's an emotion,
Mm,
and it's a challenge that particularly us men have. That um, where am I at? Who am I?
yeah,
And that is mission critical. And I love that expression. Anybody who's flown on an aeroplane and they do the safety briefing, and they say, when there's a problem and the oxygen masks drop out of the bulkhead, put your mask on first. And think about this. This is not being selfish. This is not being narcissistic. They say, put your mask on first before you help your child. Why?
yeah,
Because when you help your child and you pass out, they end up two dead bodies.
yeah,
When you put your mask on first, there's a very good probability that you'll be able to help your child.
yes,
So
yes,
it's not being selfish. It's being self-aware.
yeah, yeah,
I am, and it's that, and we got the flip side with a female gender, because the female gender is in this martyr syndrome. I give to my family, I give to my children, my husband, work, everything. And right at the end, it's me. And then they wonder why their health fails them. They're not feeling fulfilled.
mm, mm,
When the children leave and the empty nest syndrome happens, their world just crumbles because they've just
yeah,
been.
yeah,
And it's that.
giving all the time.
Yes, you need to have empathy, and it's an emotion that. But don't let empathy stop you from doing things. And I like what you said about that visualization and that process, because my objective is to have a thought,
Hmm.
take it from my brain through
Hmm.
my tongue to my lips
Hmm.
to the
Hmm.
space to your
Hmm.
ears to your brain. And what do I want to do when it gets to your brain? I want to find an emotion. Sorry. I want to find
That's
an
right.
emotion. I want to find an emotion in your head that will actually get you to act something. Either anger, excitement, joy, whatever emotion it is that talks to you. But the important thing here is not just the emotion. The important thing is about you taking action. And I say to my students, there's 4 things we need to do with anything. When you, particularly something new, stop. Why? Because most people are living in a very noisy space and a very busy world. So stop. Think. Use your prefrontal cortex to do the thinking, not the mammalian brain or the emotional brain. Use your prefrontal cortex to think, decide, and then act. And out of those 4 processes, Mark, where do you think most people fail? Stop, think,
We are in
decide, act. Where do you
we don't
think
stop.
most people fail? Hey?
We don't stop.
When it's important enough,
No.
and you stir enough emotion, the people do stop and think about it. The challenge where most people struggle with is between 3 and 4. They've made a decision. The challenge is now doing it. And I'm sure you've heard this expression. The hardest part of anything is starting. That first step.
Yeah.
That first step. And why do I say that? Because quite often when we look at it, look, we are bipedal animals. So a lot of people think when I take the first step is always 1 step forward. No.
Yeah.
You're forgetting we live in a 3-dimensional space. Your first step may be a 45-degree angle up like this or down like that. And our challenge always, Mark, is taking that first step. And I love that expression, you know. How do you complete a journey of 1,000 steps? I'm sure you've heard it before.
Taking the first step.
Taking the first step is the first thing. And then?
And then you take the next
walking.
step.
Keep walking.
Keep walking.
And we're not talking about the Johnny Walker ad. We're not talking about that. And that, think about that in most people's lives. I've made it, I've stopped, I've thought about it, I've made the decision. Now I need to act. And that's where, particularly us adults, and that's why I said right in the beginning, copy the good book that says be childlike.
Be childlike.
I don't know if you've dealt with kids under the age of 4, 5. You say to them when you're on stage and there's a whole group of them, you say, who wants to play the trombone? They all put their hand up. They don't even know what the hell a trombone is.
That's
they'll
true.
play it.
That's true.
Who wants to dance? Doesn't matter what music.
I just want to ask you a question before it slips my mind.
Yes.
You know, we spoke about the prefrontal cortex, the analytical part of the brain, and how that shuts down. And it does shut down in times of stress and times of fear. Anything that triggers an adrenal response will, you know, shut down our rational brain and take us back to that, what you call the mammalian brain. I call the crocodile brain because it's just focused on survival
I also call it the
and the
crocodile
basic
brain.
things we need. So, the challenge is, people have I'm sure a lot of people are aware of that. And because it's an autonomous response and we just go there as soon as something triggers that flight, fight, or freeze response, what do you have to say to people to help them stop automatically reverting to that? Or if we can't stop it because it's automatic, what's the fastest way to realize that you are in that animal brain and you need to move out of it? Of course, there's a time and place for things, but so if we do need to defend our lives and our, and things, then we go there. But sometimes the fear response and the anxiety response is superficial, and it's not just superficial, but it's not actually real. And because our minds can't process real and imaginary, we still get the same response. How do we help people get into a more resourceful state than stay in that crocodile brain?
I've got a technique which I teach my students. And I'll get there. Remind me to teach you and anybody listening box breathing to actually break that cycle. But you're 100% correct, because what happens is our first stimulus comes in via our crocodile brain, and our crocodile brain is just there for survival. It filters out everything else. And exactly that, when fear, it just stops here. Boom. Don't do that. You might die. So yes, once it filters through there, it then goes to the emotional brain. And we've all had that thing where you've been to an event, particularly a music event or a sporting event, and you basically functioning here in your emotions. You're excited, your team's winning, and it's all good. And the next day, it's gone and forgotten. And then, of course, your prefrontal cortex is where you do your thinking. So when you get to that fear stage, us mammals do something automatically. And you mentioned that as well. What do we do when we are faced with danger or fear? Without thinking about it, what does our body do? We draw a breath in. Why? Because you mentioned it. To deal with those three states that we're going to. We're either going to flight, we're going to run away, we're going to fight, or we're going to freeze.
Yeah.
So your body automatically does that.
Yeah.
So the first thing you need to do is, and I love them, that's them again. They say 80% of solving a problem is recognizing the problem. So when you see this, you say, okay, I'm in that space. What is your natural? And by the way, when you do that, you get all the wrong chemicals in the brain for the wrong reason, or the right reasons to fight, flight, or freeze.
Yeah. Yeah.
You want to break that cycle. So when you recognize that, the first thing you do on purpose and consciously is you exhale. You start breaking that cycle. Now, what's the normal process in your breathing cycle when you've exhaled? The normal thing is to inhale, and that's where box breathing comes in.
Yeah.
Box breathing. It's actually in one of my episodes in my podcast.
Yeah.
Here's box breathing. It's beautiful. It's super simple. You can do it anywhere, anytime, anyhow. So once you've exhaled, you breathe in for the count of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Inhale. When you get to that space, you see my hands and what's a box? When you get to the top of the box, you hold for the count of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale for the count of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you finish the box by holding 1, 2, 3, 4. Then you go into the cycle again. Inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4, hold for 4. You do that for 3 or 5 cycles, and you will find that your stress levels and your anxiety just go. I've got amazing results with my students with this. My one guy's a surfer, and he said somebody stole his wave and he wanted to, and he said he did box breathing, and it just, he said, David, it was like removing the fire. The fire just dissipated.
Yeah.
And that you can use, by the way, in the moment. You can use box breathing in the moment. You can do it beforehand. You can do it afterhand. I tell my students, practice it when you wake up in the morning, when you go to bed, and any other times in between. And it is so that, again, Mark, you know, the smart people and the educated people want to make this thing complicated. It's not. Box breathing. Oh, by the way, you can take that 4 and you can increase it to 5 or 6. For me, in my physiology and my space, I find 4 a comfortable number. That works for me. Yeah. How are we doing time-wise? I think we're pretty close to the end zone, are we?
We're pretty close to the end zone. David, it's been absolutely fantastic having you on. What I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you one more question, and then I'll give you the opportunity to give everyone your contact details and all that kind of thing. Obviously, I'm going to put that all on. It will be on the screen in the final edit, but it's just nice for you to be able to say it yourself.
I'll do that.
So, you mentioned Steve Jobs, you mentioned Elon Musk. In terms of, these people are well known for what they've done in terms of technology, their vision, and how they got people together to deliver that vision. And, while Steve Jobs is no longer with us, he's left a legacy. Elon Musk is doing the same thing. He's still here, but he's taking things to other levels. We've got Richard Branson and all these kind of people. Personally, who would you say, it doesn't matter what you look at, whether it's a political thing or, business or organizations or tech or anything like that. Who would you say has been your major influence in terms of being a game changer, and why?
Jesus Christ. Why? He started with 12 people, 12 people. And look what he's done 2,000 years later. And by the way, here's an interesting thing about that. Out of those 12 that he selected, one of them was a bad apple.
Yeah.
So even he got it wrong. Look, he knew about it. But that's really what it's about. It's not about, and the reason I pick him and his religion is because it's not about, that's quite often in business, particularly when you're starting out, you accepting every customer and everything, and you never say no. And I love the one sales guru said, one of the most important things you can learn in sales and in business is to say no.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
you're the wrong fit for me. I don't want you. And it's a
Yeah.
you can use whatever adjective you use. It's a piss off price. My price is normally $1,000, but for you, special price 5,000. Why? Because I don't want to
Yeah.
work with you. But when you're prepared to pay that, I'll do that. But that's why the answer is to literally sometimes in life say no. It's not being
Yeah.
negative. It's actually being clever in literally saying, thank you for your interest in whatever business you're in or whatever product or service. You don't say that to the client. I actually don't want to work with you because you are numbnuts. I don't want you in my space. I don't want your energy I don't want to be that. I don't want your money. Because, let's be real with most businesses and most people who run a business. One sale is not going to move the needle significantly.
Yeah.
Look, I remember many years ago, when I was a scuba diving instructor and I was working in the Caribbean, one of the guests that came there, his job was selling jet engines.
Yeah.
So yes, he didn't sell one a week. He maybe made 2 or 3 sales a year, but when he did, it was a significant number.
A game changer. Yeah.
But you know what I'm saying? For most of us mere mortals, one sale is not going to move the needle. Look, the important thing about a sale, particularly the first sale, is what? Hell, I can do this. It works. People are prepared to spend money on my product. There's value here.
Yeah.
That's the power of one sale. But multiple sales and continuous sales, that's where it's also this mindset of saying, it's not just saying yes to everybody.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did I answer your question?
You did.
Maybe not the way you wanted me to.
No, it gave an answer, because it's all about being a game changer, and to change your own life, there's a few different things. Like, you have to be mindful of the energy you expose yourself to. So, you answered that question there, because yes, in business, there is a tendency to just welcome every customer because we want that needle to move, even if it's at an invisible distance. But what energy are you bringing in? And it's the same thing with people you associate with, not just people you do business with. It's what you feed your mind with in terms of what you watch on TV, what you listen to on the radio, and all that kind of thing.
100%.
You also mentioned earlier on in the podcast things like empathy and the part they play in game changing, but also to be mindful of monitoring that empathy to the point, if you empathized with everything and everyone all the time, you'd have no space to be aware of your own well-being. And if you fall down and die, then there's nobody to help everybody else, which is
put your mask on first.
You put your mask on first. So you've touched on everything. The imagination aspect of it, the visualization, the visionary work. So there's a lot to go on, and thanks for coming on this podcast today, David. I knew you'd be a guest with lots of energy and lots of life experience and things to give to people, which is what we want to do. It's not just about people listening to what we do as business people, but actually giving them something that they can go away from and apply, and come back to the podcast and listen to it again and go and apply something else. So before we go, David, can you give us, contact details and all that sort of stuff?
Sure. I'll give you my Facebook, my LinkedIn, and
Yeah.
I'll give you my website. My website will only be live from the middle of October 2024. At the
Okay.
moment, I'm still building it. But
Yeah.
my website is very simple. It's
Yeah.
davidyes.com. David, David, yes, as in yes.com.
Okay. Is
Not
that so?
complicated.
David, yes, is just one word.
Correct. One
Okay.
word, lowercase, davidyes.com. Please only go there the middle of next month. You go there now and you won't get anything because
Yeah.
I'm still in the process of putting it together.
Yeah. Well, if I had known you before that, you'd have come to me and we would have put your website together. But David, thank you for being on this podcast, and thank you for having me on yours. And I'm sure I'll see you again on many more.
We will talk. Thank you, Mark. Thank
Excellent.
you
Thanks, David.
for your focus and your emotions.
Thank you, David. Have a good one,
Peace be
and I'll
with you.
catch you later.